The Dalek invasion of Earth is easily the most impressive first Doctor story that I have seen by quite a fair margin. After a rather silly story, things took a very serious turn in the first episode. We opened with a very strange scene of a man with some sort of a metal helmet on his head walking into the river and not coming out. Then, our TARDIS team arrives and begins to question what is going on, wondering where all the people and sounds are, and as they begin to explore, they begin to learn more and more about what the humans with the metal helmets are and what's going on. And the first episode ends in a fantastic moment when we see a Dalek emerge from the lake, which was just great. As far as the pacing of the story, it's handled really well. I was never bored, and while the quality of the parts ranged from quite good to fantastic, the story never lowered below quite good, and it was just a thoroughly engaging watch. And I almost wonder if they could have made this story even better had they reduced it by just one part to get things moving just a little bit faster throughout and make everything have just that much more momentum. But the reason I question this is that there was by no means a bad part. I just would have liked to see the story be even greater than it already is. The Daleks work really well in this story, and they make quite an effective presence. And finding out what they've done and their plan is ultimately quite interesting, although I'll touch back on that later. I'm trying to find a way to get into this episode without spoiling it, but I don't know what else to say, so my advice is definitely watch this episode. It's well worth it, and if you haven't seen it, then I recommend you stop this video now to avoid plot details. But if you're going to stick with me, then let's get right into some kind of spoilers. So, since you're still with me, let's keep going. So we find out that the Daleks are controlling the humans with these helmets, and if they are named in the episode, I simply don't remember. That works pretty well in the story, and they almost feel like a midway point to what the Cybermen are. There's a rather great scene where we see one man talk to his brother who's being controlled by the Daleks, and that honestly worked really well for me. Just desperately talking to him, wishing he could save him, but knowing that he can't. Also, it's rather interesting that this story takes place in the future, and that doesn't really impact the story very much, but it still works well for what the story needs to do. Also, assuming Doctor Who is still running by this point in the future, will they deal with this situation? Will the Doctor just spend less time on Earth? Will the show be on a hiatus? Who knows? I certainly won't be alive to find out. Another great thing in this story was a sequence in part 3 in which Barbara and a couple of other folks are trying to make their way through London, and seeing them run and hide for several minutes all the time while this great music is adding to the intensity and the reality of the sequence. I also really enjoyed seeing Barbara run into a Dalek. That was some good fun. Also, finding out about the Daleks' plan to pilot Earth is rather interesting, especially considering the stolen Earth and a line from that episode when the Doctor said, "Someone tried to move the Earth before, a long time ago, can't be." So now that's something everybody else knew that I too know, so that's fun. I assume that line was in reference to this, and while this was in the future from the stolen Earth, in terms of the timeline of the show, it was in the Doctor's past. It's just fun little things that I enjoy. I also really enjoyed the end when everybody fights back against the Daleks, and there's a group holding up a Dalek, and some people beating up Daleks, and overall, that was just awesome to see them get the best of the Daleks after 6 grueling episodes. So I'm going to mention one negative before I get to my main positive, and the negative is the Slither, which just doesn't really work. I can roll with it, kind of, for a little bit, because it's not in the story a lot, but that was something that I think should have been cut entirely, and that's one of the reasons I think that this story would just run smoother as 5 parts, because that whole section of the story with the Slither is a part that just kind of drags for, I don't know, maybe it's 10 minutes, I'm not quite sure. So if that had been, I wish that just wasn't in the story. That's my preference, but yeah, I don't want to get too caught up on that, because it's not a big deal for me in the grand scope of things. Alright, main positive time. Well, Susan, the Doctor leaves Susan, and wow, I knew this was coming, but wow, that ending 7 minutes or so just works so well. The Doctor talking with Susan for a couple of minutes and then stepping inside the TARDIS and locking her out, and then the speech that he gives to Susan is just so phenomenal. Like, wow. Just wow. I mean, I just think it's absolutely incredible what the Doctor did, letting her go. Letting her have an opportunity to have a sense of identity and giving her the chance to thrive like she always wanted. I mean, he knew that she couldn't leave him, but he knew that it was necessary, and that's just incredible to me. I absolutely adore that ending. God, it's just so perfect to me. You could argue whether or not the Doctor did the right thing, That's definitely something that could be argued, but I think he definitely did. And it's amazing that he was able to do that, that he was able to give her what she couldn't give herself. That's such an incredible ending to me. I love that. At first, when the show was trying to introduce some sort of romance for Susan, I thought it was going to be absolutely insufferable. And while I'm not going to buy into this romance, I just can't, and believe that these two are actually in love, like the show would like me to believe, I don't need to. I just need to be able to buy into Susan's longing for identity and settling down, which was well set up last season and continued here. And it does make sense to me that Susan would ultimately fall for a human, considering the time that she spent with them and her fascination with Earth. So that part of it makes sense to me. Also, please bring Susan back. Caroline Ford said that she would be back if asked, and we could fill in the gaps of where she went and if she got caught up in the Time War or what else happened to her. I really want that episode to happen desperately. I did have a mixed relationship with Susan, and while even in this story she still screamed too much, I understand her. And I'm happy for her. I want her to belong to a time and to a place. And now she can help with the renovations of Earth and really, truly belong. I understand that. And in the end, who doesn't want to belong somewhere? Overall, this story really impressed me, top to bottom. From its Daleks to its goodbyes, this one puts the classic in classic Who. With only some very minor complaints, I enjoyed nearly every aspect of the story, and feel more educated in Who lore having seen it. The Dalek Invasion of Earth earns a great rating of 8.75 out of 10. I think had it been 5 parts, it would have had a good shot at a 9 out of 10 for me. If you join me again this coming Sunday, then I'll be reviewing The Rescue, another one that I have already seen. So, be sure to let me know what you thought about this episode down below. If you have any thoughts on it, if you've seen it, I hope you have, because I kind of talked some spoilers in here, but I did warn you about that one. I'm sure you've seen it. Well, I'm not sure, but let me know. Are you excited to see it? Have you already seen it? Are you going to rewatch it? Just tell me your thoughts on this episode, and you know what? Any episode if you want to. Anyway, that's going to be all for today. I hope you join me next Sunday when I will be reviewing The Crusade. Thanks for watching, take care, and have a lovely week.